Okay, so just to welcome everybody. I know everyone is loves Netilat Yadayim and wants to stay talking about Netilat Yadayim, washing your hands for as many weeks as we can. But I think this is going to be the last week on Netilat Yadayim. I see already that next week we're talking about Hamotzi. So we're moving on from Netilat Yadayim. This is the last one. So if you have any more questions about Netilat Yadayim, tonight is the night to ask. And so now just to give a little outline of what the shares with the share tonight, what we're going to cover, just so it's easy to follow. So we're starting from Shulchan Aruch in Kuf Samech Gimel, which is 1163, if you want to follow along. So first we're going to talk about right if you've heard the famous I'm not touching the chal, I'm not touching the bread, I don't need a wash. Okay, so we're going to discuss, is that true? To what extent is that true? Is it not true at all? But that's number one. Number two, what if you're feeding somebody bread? Like, let's say the person, I don't know, the person just for whatever reason they're not touching the bread, and someone else is feeding them. So who has to wash? Do either of them have to wash? Good. That's topic number two. Topic number three is a little bit more specific. But we'll see how it was used actually example. But that's like, what if you want to make, basically, what if you want to wash at the beginning of the day and say, oh, all my washing, right? If I wash in the beginning of the day, let that cover all the washing I have to do for the rest of the day. That's number three. Number four, what if in the middle of your meal, you touch something that maybe would make you have to wash? Okay, that's number four. Number five is a question which we discussed, and we're going to circle back to, and which is good because I got it wrong when I answered it. Is what if you go to the bathroom and then you want to get directly out of the bathroom and you want to then wash your hands, then also wash your hands to make hamotzi. So what's the correct thing to do there? So we're circling back to that one, and then finally we're going to talk about the most famous is the idea of not talking, not speaking in between washing your hands and making the hamotzi. So that's the game plan for tonight. Good. Okay, so now let's start with we're gonna start with, and it's from Kuf Samach Gimel, right, from 163. If you want to follow along, I'll let you know when we're moving from one to another, and we're gonna finish with one Kuf Samach Vav, Kuf Samach Gimel to Kuf Samach Vav in the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah. So 163 to 166. So first, right, we'll start with Kuf Samach Gimel. Kuf Samach Gimel in Siman Aleph. No, Siman Kuf Samach Gimel Sif Aleph. That okay. So we're discussing the idea. Maybe if I don't touch the bread, do I still have to wash? So Shulchan Aruch says that the Shulchan Aruch says as follows, that if you don't have water, right? Let's say you're walking, basically you're traveling. So if you don't have water and you're not going to find water within, he says 4 mil. So we have to define what a mil is, but he says 4 mil in front of you. Then what you could do is you could take a napkin. He says a mappa. You could take a napkin, cover your hands, basically. And then you don't need to you're not going to be touching the bread, and you can eat the bread in this way without washing. So if you're going to be walking forward 4 mil, or if you'd have to walk backwards 1 mil. So what is a mil? So most people say they put on the side different measurements. How many minutes is a mil? But I think the most common is 18 minutes. I think that most people understand it, 18 minutes. So basically, like let's say you're driving somewhere, you're walking somewhere, and you're on your way. So so if it's 18, right? So 1 mil is 18 minutes. So 18 times 4 is, what is that? 72, right? So 72 minutes, right, in your way. So then you wouldn't be able to use this napkin trick, and you would have to look for water and wash your hands. Or if you would have to travel back, if you could travel back less than 18 minutes from where you are, then you would have to travel back. And so my father says maybe 24 minutes. So I think so. So they quoted the debate is 18 minutes, 24 minutes. So I'm just saying 18 minutes, but if people tell you it's 24 minutes, then probably they have a source for that too. So if you'd have to travel backwards 18 minutes, right, to go out of your way, totally back in the opposite direction, so up until 18 minutes, then, or up until 1 mil, so you would have to travel back. So that's a little bit confusing. So so my father's telling me it's 24 minutes, so I'm gonna go with 24 minutes. So let's go with 24 minutes. So anyways, that's a little bit confusing because we're not always traveling. So Mission Brew explains that he says basically anytime you're like sitting in your house, or that would be considered as if you would go by the traveling backwards rule, which would basically mean that in most cases I would say is that your status is the 1 mil. So either 18 or 24 minutes, whatever, however we want to say it, or that if you could get to water there, then you should then you have to go get the water. But if you can't, if it would take you longer than that, let's say it would take you 30 minutes to find water, so then you could use this napkin trick. Mishnah Brewer explained in Sifkat and Bays that if there is water available, then you can't use this napkin trick. You can't do, hey, I'm not touching the bread. But you actually have to go get the water, or if you can travel within 1 mil, then you have to go get the water and wash your hands. So it does work, right? It does work, but but only in this specific case where you're not going to be able to get water within 18 to 24 minutes. And the Mission Brew does say, let's say you're not sure, right? Maybe you'll get water, maybe you're not going to be able to have water. Let's say you're driving on the highway, right? And you don't know where the next rest stop is, right? Freeways days, you don't know where the rest stop is. So maybe you're going to be able to get water within 18 to 24 minutes, 18 or 24 minutes, and maybe you're not. So if that's the case, he says, okay, you could use a napkin trick. If you're not sure, you could use a napkin, you could put your hands in a mappa, and you don't need to wash your hands. So how exactly would you do this? So Mishnah Brewer explains in Sif Katan Hay that let's say you're in New York and you're eating pizza, right? So you need a wash on pizza. Okay, so if I'm a New Yorker, how do I eat my pizza? One hand, right? My left hand, it's not touching it, right? My left hand's for my phone. My right hand's for my pizza. That's obvious, right? So I do I need to put a napkin in my left hand? So Mission Brewer says yes. Says you have to have both your hands covered by a napkin, even if you're not going to touch it with your other hand, just because that's the rule. He says that was the way that the Rabbanim made this takana. They made this rule, and both hands. So the Rama says another way you could do is maybe use a utensil. He says use a spoon. But the Mishnah Berurah says some people disagree about using a spoon because he says it's much more likely. I don't know if this would be true for all of us, but says the Mishnah Berurah explains that it's more likely that the actual bread would touch your hand if you're using a spoon, right, to touch the bread, than if you're using like this napkin. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's why he explained that it's better to just use a mop up, put your hands in the napkin, put both your hands in there, and then if you need to, right, and if you're in a situation where you basically can't get to water, you'd be able to eat the bread that way. Okay, good. That's number one. Does anyone have any questions on that? What about gloves? Yeah, so I think gloves basically serve as a they didn't bring it down in the deer shoe, but I think that pretty much serves as a mappa, um, serves as a napkin. I would think that would work. We are going to quote a different idea about gloves later, but I think that should work. Um, okay, so then let's go to number two. This is in Shulchan Aruch. We're in Shulchan Aruch still Kuf Samach Gimel. We're still 163. We're on number two. Let's say you're so someone is feeding someone else. Who has to wash? So I would think, right, the person who touches the bread has to wash. So says the Shulchan Aruch, nope, nope. The person who has to wash is the person eating the food, not the person who's feeding, not the person who's actually feeding the person the food. And the Mishnah Berurah explains how come that's true. He says because the the when the Rabbanan when the rabbis made this rule, they only made it for eating. They didn't make it on just touching bread. They made it for eating the bread. And because of this, and even if you're not going to be touching the bread, right? They still apply this rule that you have to wash your hands before you eat bread. So if someone is feeding you, right, if someone is feeding another person bread, the one who has to wash is the person who is eating the bread, not the person who is feeding the other person the bread. And so that's the halacha. But the Ramah says over here in Sif Beis, the Ramah says that because of this, right? Let's say I have to feed someone bread, and I know they don't really know the halacha so well, or I know they don't like to wash. So the Ramah says I'm not actually able to. That if that's the case, I can't feed them bread because now I'm causing them right to eat bread without having washed. And that's a bad thing, right? You're supposed to wash before you eat bread. So he says you can't do that. That would fall under the provision of lifting the iver, basically meaning you're gonna cause someone else. You're gonna cause someone else. You're like placing a stumbling block in front of a blind person. You're causing someone else to do an aver, and so you can't actually feed them. But the Dirshu quotes on the side, they quote from Rav Moshe and from Rosh Zalman and from the Shevet Levi, these different ways of allowing it in certain situations where you want the person to, if that would cause like a chilul Hashem, for example, if people would think, oh, this Jew, he thinks he's so religious, he won't even feed me, he won't even let me eat bread unless he makes me get up and wash. So there are some sort of heterim. If the cases arises, obviously you should ask someone with authority to give you a halachic ruling. So that's Kuf Samach Gimel. Now we move on. I see a question in the chat. What if grease comes from the bread, comes through the napkins? Yeah, I think that'd be a problem. I think the whole point of the napkins is that you don't touch it. So if you're using napkins where the grease is going to get through, I think you should use different napkins. That's what it would seem like. Okay, so let's do to Kuf Samach Daled. Okay, so when you read this halacha, you think, okay, this is probably not so relevant, but I'm gonna tell you why it's relevant. So let's say, the Shulchan Aruch says that if you wanted to, he says what you could do, which is if you wanted to, you could wash in the beginning of the day, where you get up in the morning, you wash and do a wash as if you're eating bread, and say, even though I'm not eating bread right now, right, let me make it tonight. Let me make a condition that when I'm going to need to eat bread, right, my washing right now is as if my washing right now is as if it's for I'm eating bread right after. And that's gonna work for the rest of the day. He says that's gonna work as long as you don't touch anything, which is gonna mess you up, make you unclean. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. But the Mishnah Berurah writes in Sif Daled that he says no, we don't do this anymore because we're not able to keep our hands clean. It says our hands are always busy. We're doing stuff. We're working. We're doing this. We're touching our phones, right? It's not going to work. So only in a shas hadchak gadol. It says in really extenuating circumstances would this work. So I was talking to someone in the base manager in the morning, and I was showing him different things in the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah, and he told me that in Teaneck that one of the Rebbeim wanted to during COVID when they were really concerned about everyone being in certain places and touching certain things. So he said that one of the Rebbeim actually wanted to use this psak of the Shulchan Aruch and tell all the kids to wash their hands in the beginning of the day and make this condition that if they're going to eat bread, this should work. He told me I don't think they end up doing it, but he said one of the Rebbeim actually wanted to do this. So that's where it could come up. And even though in Mishnah Berurah we don't do this anymore, but maybe in a time of extenuating circumstances, shas hadchak gadol, big extenuating circumstance, you could do it. So I think maybe that would apply. And he read the Mishnah Berurah and said maybe we should do this with these kids. But I don't think in the end of the day they ended up doing it. But that's the halacha. And this is where gloves come up. So they quote on the side, they quote the Kaf Chaim. They said, okay, Mishnah Berurah said nowadays we don't know how to keep our hands clean. Okay, what if I just wear gloves? The Kaf Chaim says even if you're wearing gloves, sometimes you take off your gloves, right? Everyone knows you can't really swipe on your phone if you have gloves on, so you're gonna take them off, right? You're gonna pick your nails, so you're gonna do something. So even with gloves, we still don't really do this anymore unless we really need to. That would be the halacha. This would be similar to saying the bracha for Torah at Shachar. If you say it in the beginning of the day, and right, it would work just like that. You say it once in the end, once in the beginning, and you're done for the day. Okay, so now we're gonna go to Samachalik Sifes. That this is so right, it's similar, but let's say right, say this the Shulchan Aruch says that let's say you're in the middle of your meal, and then while you're in the middle of your meal, you touch one of the, say in Hebrew and then translate the Makomos Hamu Hamil Hamechusim Ba'adam. So that means a place on your body which is typically covered. Right. So it's normally you'd be wearing clothes on it. Or and you might even be wearing clothes on it right now, and for whatever reason, you happen to touch that place on your body during the meal. So there's a Shulchan Aruch. That makes your hands unclean. And now what are you supposed to do? Right in the middle of your meal. You're an hour in. Right? You have a nice discussion with Shabbos. You washed already. You forgot about the bread, right? You put honey on your salad because it was just Rosh Hashanah, right? Totally forgot about it, and now you touched, I don't know, you touched a place that's normally covered on your body. So says the Shulchan Aruch, what do? You have to wash your hands. Not only do you have to wash your hands, you have to make a bracha on the washing of your hands. That's what he says. So that is so that's a that seems like a pretty serious halacha. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that. So what are we going to say about that? So the so they quote from the Dirshu on the side. They quote the Machzit Shekel that what's considered a place that's normally covered, right? Depends where you are. If I'm in Bnei Brak, probably there's a lot more being covered than if I'm somewhere else, right? Some places it's normal to wear more clothes. Some places it's normal to wear less clothes. So it all depends about where you are, right? Kol lafi minag, wherever you are, whatever is normal. But he says the rule would be the same, right? If you're covering a place where in that case in that place it's normal for it to be covered, so then you would have to wash your hands. They quote from the Kaf HaChaim that not everyone, they say quote some who argue, but Kaf HaChaim says that if your body is clean, right? If you're someone who normally takes showers, your body is clean, so maybe that should be a heter, and you wouldn't, right? If you're not actually touching something dirty, and you would have to you would not have to wash your hands. They also quote the Shulchan Aruch quotes hair, and they quote from Chaim Kanievsky that he was machmir, someone who touched his hair in the middle of a meal, they should have to wash their hands. But I think I heard that Rosh Schechter is supposedly pretty makil about that, and said that is true because back then they used to have a lot of lice in their hair, but thank God, now our hair is a little more clean than their hair. But okay, but anyways, so what comes out, right, is if you touch something dirty, right, first, if you touch something, a place where it could be dirty, right, that's really the issue, right? So touching a place that's normally covered, it means there could be something dirty there. That's really why the Shulchan Aruch says it could be a problem. And is it a problem? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? That depends if you're going to hold like the Kaf HaChaim or not. But if you touch something which is actually dirty, actually disgusting, so you should really wash again. That's what the Shulchan Aruch seems to be saying. So the Mishnah Berurah says if that's true, right? If I would just touch a place that it might be dirty, and I have to wash again. So then then for sure if I would go to the bathroom, right, and if I go to the bathroom, then for sure I would need to wash my hands again. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. So that seems that's what he says basically. But he says doesn't say anytime you went to the bathroom. He says only if you went to the bathroom and either you did a number two in the bathroom or if you got your hands a little dirty, then you need to do it. But if you just quickly go to the bathroom, right, then you would not need to wash your hands again. So the Shulchan Aruch said though that you need to make a bracha on this. The Mishnah Berurah quotes from the Marishal that you don't make a bracha. So the Mishnah Berurah says at the end of the day, what do we do? Do we make a bracha? Do we not make a bracha? Do we wash our hands? Do we not wash our hands? So the Biur Halacha, he sums it up very nicely, right? There's a bunch of things that's going on. So what does he say to do? He says that If you really went to the bathroom, then he says you should wash your hands and you should say a bracha. But if you just went to the bathroom, you just went to the bathroom very quickly, right? Then you would not make a bracha at all. And if you got your hands a little dirty, then you should just wash your hands and don't make a bracha, right? But if you just went to the bathroom very quickly in the middle of your meal, you would not need to wash your hands again for Netilat Yadayim. Some people are very makpid to they're very careful to wash their hands even with a cup every time they go to the bathroom. But I think that if you're just going to the bathroom and you're clean when you do it in the middle of the meal, you would not need to wash your hands unless of course you get yourself dirty. Okay, so that's the bathroom in the middle of the meal. That's if you get your hands dirty in the middle of the meal. Halacha. Any questions there? Okay, good. So now, then let's circle back to the question that we spoke about a few weeks ago. That what if I go to the bathroom and then right after I go to the bathroom, I want to wash my hands because I know I'm gonna about to have a meal and I'm about to eat bread. So what did I tell you to do? So I told you that the right thing to do is supposed to that I thought that maybe what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to just wash your hands, right? And for bread, making Netilat Yadayim, say the bracha, eat the bread, and then say Asher Yatzar after, because we know you could say Asher Yatzar, you could say the bracha for going to the bathroom anytime after until the next time you go to the bathroom. That's what I thought would be the correct thing to do. But the Mishnah Brura, he discusses this case, exactly this case. And what does he say to do? He says, don't do that. He says, Roey, you're wrong. Don't do that. He says, because even though it's true that you could say Asher Yatzar until the next time you go to the bathroom, because you don't want to delay doing it. Because even though it's allowed, some people they like to they quote on the side from the Dirshu that some people when they're traveling, they go to the bathroom, so they like to delay saying Asher Yatzar and say it next to the Tfilas Derech, so that way it's a bracha that's connected to another bracha. They like to say that right next to each other. So even though it's allowed, right? Because ideally you don't really want to delay in saying Asher Yatzar. So what should you do? So he says, right, if you would say Netilat Yadayim, if first you would wash your hands and then you would say a bracha Netilat Yadayim, and then you would say Asher Yatzar, and then you would eat bread, that would be no good, because now you have a break, right? That you said the Asher Yatzar in between from when you washed and when you ate bread. You don't want to do that. So, and the third option is you say Asher Yatzar first, right? Which is could make sense, right? Then you wash your hands, and then you say Amotzi. So what would be the problem with that? So the problem with that is that if I wash my hands after I go to the bathroom, right? This is all going based on the idea that you wash your hands. Someone would wash their hands after going to the bathroom before they say Asher Yatzar. So, but the problem with doing that is that if you would wash your hands, then you might make your hands totally clean, and then when you wash your hands again to do the Netilat Yadayim, then you're washing your hands on something that's not really obligated to wash your hands. So the best thing to do, which I think is what probably we would think to do logically, because there Shlomo Zalman did this, is that when you wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, just make sure to not, even if you're someone who's very careful to every time after they go to the bathroom to use a cup to wash your hands. So this time, don't use a cup. Just wash your hands directly from the sink. Or like we spoke about, washing your hands from the sink would not be good. Netilas Yadayim, it would not be good for eating bread. So if you wash your hands from the sink, your hands will be clean. So you say Asher Yatzar, but your hands are still not tahor, right? You haven't done Netilas Yadayim on those hands. So now you could take a cup, fill it up, and do a Netilas Yadayim, and then you could make hamotzi. So that's the correction from what we spoke about before. So just say it again. I don't know if it was clear. What should you do? So you have to, if you go to the bathroom, and then if you go to the bathroom, then you want to make it Netilas Yadayim. So Mishnah Brura says that they quote there's Shlomo Zalman on the best thing to do is go to the bathroom, wash your hands, soap and water, say Asher Yatzar, and then wash your hands in a cup and do properly for an Netilas Yadayim. So that's number 5. And then finally, the last thing we're going to talk about, next few minutes we'll finish up, is this idea about not speaking in between not speaking in between washing my hands for doing the Netilat Yadayim and saying the Hamotzi. So the Shulchan Aruch says in Kuf Samach Vav, right now we're at 166. So the Shulchan Aruch says, right, we know, right, we're basically taught this from when we're kids. Don't speak after washing your hands before you eat Hamotzi. We know that. So Shulchan Aruch actually says that it's machloket. He says some yesh omrim, which means some people say that you don't need to be careful, right? You don't need to be careful that after you wash your hands before you say Hamotzi, you don't need to be careful. Yeah, you can speak if you want, but he says yesh omrim. Some people say no, it's better to be careful about it. That you shouldn't say anything. So what does Shulchan Aruch say to do? Tov, what's a good thing to do is lidayir. It's a good thing to be careful, right? You should be careful about it. You shouldn't say anything in between washing your hands and eating hamotzi. So Mishnah Berurah kind of limits a little bit the other side, right? The side that says that you can speak, that you don't need to be careful. The Mishnah Berurah says that it means, right? It means the Mishnah Berurah says this is from a Gemara in Brachos in Rav, which basically says that you should put your Netilat Yadayim, you should have your Netilat Yadayim washing your hands right next to your Hamotzi. They should be like as soon as it should be one after another as soon as possible. So you explained if that's true, right? Then obviously you shouldn't have any hefsek. You shouldn't have anything which is going to break that apart. So now the question is talking, right, considered a hefsek? So the first opinion is that, if I'm kind of just sitting there and I say, like not really talking, but I'm sitting at the table, right? I'm still thinking obviously about the bread, right? I'm at the table. I'm waiting for the bread to be taught. I'm waiting for the bread to be eaten. So that's not really called a hefsek. But the other opinion is that, even though that's true, you still want to be careful. Don't even say anything. Don't even say words of Torah. Just sit there. Don't say anything at all. But even though that's true, right? Everyone would agree that if I'm talking literally about the meal, right? If I'm even talking about the bread, then I would be able to speak. That's a famous passive salt, right? People like to say, okay, can't talk after I wash my hands. And then they'll be like, pass the salt, right? They'll say that out loud because they know that's something which is permitted for you to say even after you wash your hands before you eat the bread, because that's about the actual bread itself, right? Anything actually about the bread itself isn't going to be a hefsek. It's not going to be something which divides it because you're literally talking about the bread. I see even the opinion that says talking is still not a hefsek. Still one needs to not talk between the bracha and eating the bread. Between the bracha of the hamotzi, I think that means between the bracha of the hamotzi, that that even one who says that you don't need to be careful, right? If someone makes the bracha of the hamotzi, you can't start speaking until you actually eat the bread itself. That's a different hefsek, but probably even more important hefsek, the hefsek of saying the bracha to doing the action. So one would need to be careful about that too. Let's see if there's anything else. So the Mishnah Berurah quotes in Hay that also that you should know that basically you should do hamotzi as soon as possible, as from the Netilat Yadayim. But here this I think is an interesting discussion. The Mishnah Berurah says that this whole thing, right, the idea about not talking from when I wash till I eat the bread. So he says that's all lechatchila, that's all ideal. But b'diavad, right, which means like, okay, let's say I messed up, right? I have a big mouth, couldn't help myself. I just had to find out who won the game, right? So did you see the game, right? And I spoke. I spoke in between. So Mishnah says, don't worry about it. You're okay. You don't need to wash. It's all lechatchila, it's all ideal. But b'diavad, right? If you did it and it was done, okay, don't worry, you don't need to wash again. So okay, so that's what Mishnah Berurah says. But they quote from the side. It's a good thing we have my father on, because he'll tell us what the minhag is. They quote from the side, from the Chazon Ish and from Rav Moshe, that they say, nope, wash again. Don't make a bracha, but wash again. You should wash again if you spoke. So Abba, what's the minhag? What do we do? He says, say no? Do you wash again? Are you supposed to? Are you supposed to? If let's say you speak in between your in between washing your hands and saying emotzi. So are you supposed to wash again, or you're not supposed to wash again? You would get it. Oh, so he says the minhag is don't wash again. Don't do it. Don't wash again. So like the Mishnah Brura, not like the Chazon Ish and the Mishnah Brura. By the way, even in this time, right, they quote on the side that you would still be able to say Amen, you still be able to say Amen to someone's bracha. That wouldn't be considered a hefsek. And also that if you're waiting for others to finish up washing, that's also not really called a hefsek. So that wouldn't be a break, and that would be okay. So that's the end of Netilat Yadayim. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. And next week we'll pick up with I think we're talking about Hamutzi.
Question?